sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. The challenges come thick and fast in the Lionheart Retro Series. After first tackling the high banks of Homestead, Miami, the Lotus 79s last rolled out for their first road course at Watkins Glen. Now, a short track demanding the most from the drivers. With 2 different winners in the first 2 races, who can come out with the most magic in the Granite State? Welcome to the Magic Mile, and welcome to the HyperX New Hampshire 150. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined once again in the commentary booth by DJ Clark, and let's dive straight into our butt kicker pre-race show because what an interesting start to the season it's been, DJ. Homestead, Miami, a treat. Watkins Glen, a treat, apart from the final couple of laps, which we don't know much about. But now we head to a track where we start to get into the meat of the season, and a track where, as you can attest to as a former competitor, things can get a little bit sticky.
Yeah, they can indeed, Arjuna. This is really and truly a short track that you got to be very, very careful around, and you can see it's going to set the stage for what we have coming up. We head to Pocono next. You can't get more different than going from New Hampshire to Pocono, then Long Beach, and all the way down through. But this one, a little bit of an outlier. This doesn't really drive like any other oval in the country, and so it's going to be a real challenge for these drivers tonight. Yeah,
here's a look at that Next Level Racing schedule. After this, 3 races in May. DJ, I think both you and me are going to end up missing that race at Long Beach because we'll be over at Speedway, Indiana. However, first Triple Crown coming up next, always important, but we'll head to Indianapolis for the series later on in June. Notice in the first half of the season, though, DJ, there's a lot of staple tracks. There's not much new for the drivers to have to go out there and contend with.
No, there really aren't at this point, and so that's going to be a little bit of a point of solace for these drivers, I think. The real only question mark that we don't know a whole lot about is going to be that Fuji circuit. That's going to be one to circle right after we come out of Indianapolis, and so that'll be one to keep an eye on. But a lot of familiar favorites here, and that'll be good.
So that's a look at the schedule with 2 rounds in the books. Championship, of course, really hard to pick too much up through. Here's a look at the driver standings presented by Next Level Racing, where Sean Campbell is at the top after Phil Kraus slipped up last time out. Matt Taylor, Dan Zagers, Tyler Graf, and then Mike Razmas through your top 5. Marius Valiokas, who finally was able to get into HyperX victory lane last time out, has jumped up to 7th, but still early days in the championship. There's a long, long way to go, and so when we talk as well about the HyperX Team Championship, yes, it's Nazumi Graphics LC 1 and 2. It's going to be strength in numbers that's going to make the rest of the season so very interesting, DJ.
Yeah, it very much is, because a lot of these big-name teams have multiple drivers coming on in, and frankly, it's simple math, Arjuna. You get more drivers coming in, you get more chances to be able to get a good bite at the apple, and so I think it's going to be a numbers game that sees this team's championship win out.
That's a look at your HyperX Team Championship. One more championship to talk about quickly. It's the Butt Kicker Rookie Series and Championship, and this is one where it's going to be interesting with Sean Campbell and Phil Kraus being such dominant forces across the sim racing world, how they'll be able to pull away. Dan Zagers, someone that's not necessarily been involved in the same caliber of competitions as Campbell and Kraus, who have been embroiled in some of the top-level series that we have here on RaceSpotTV, but going to be interesting to see how he can continue his momentum moving on forward. Behind them, though, it's a pretty interesting rookie class. You've got the likes of Samuel Fontaine, Kai Bommersbach, who's impressed in the Lionheart Open Wheel Series, and even Bruno Miranda, who finally got a little bit more luck on his side in that Juncos Hollinger esports car just 7 days ago.
Yeah, and all of these rookies very, very eager to prove their mettle. Arjuna, I can tell you as somebody who has competed in this series, you are coming up against a lot of history, and as a rookie, you very quickly want to establish yourself as a quick driver, a consistent driver, and a driver that everybody in this series wants to race because you're going to race them cleanly.
Yes, that's the most important thing. League Series, you tend to get to know who you want to be racing with pretty early on in the season. Here's a look at your Gomez Sim Industry Series details as we head into the 7th series of this Lionheart Retro Championship. The 10th year, though, of the Lionheart Racing Series. We campaign in a car designed to break boundaries in Grand Prix racing, but we prove in this series that you can take it just left around an oval as well. They're using a custom fixed setup built by the Majors Garage, and the cash and prizes tot up to just around $3,600. And of course, we're only a week away from the first of our Triple Crowns, Indy and Auto Club, rounding out the season. Still a lot to talk about when it comes to that. They're all chasing your defending series champion Mike Razmas, and of course the defending team champions are now under a slightly different label, but Nezumi Graphics LC Madwork. So I think I've said we can simplify the naming. We're going to have to work and workshop on that, but they still look pretty good early in this campaign. Here's a look at the arena event details as well, with the diverse set of challenges continuing here at the Magic Mile, which frustratingly is not actually a mile in length. The winner has never come from the first position. Starting inside of the top 6 is a very good sign, although we have never seen a winner come from the 4th position. Could this be the first time? Twice we've seen this race under cautions. Both those races interrupted by plenty of frequent safety cars, but the closest margin of victory, 0.5 of a second, and we don't tend to have too many cautions here. And it's all about Chris Fowler, who's trying to grab his 2nd win in this Lionheart Retro Series.
Well, it's not altogether surprising that a driver like Fowler is the one who's going for the back-to-back wins here at this point. This is a track that requires a lot of rhythm, a lot of consistency, and a lot of very, very precise driving. It's almost like driving a road course out here, the way you've got to kind of brake and lift into these corners. Not the easiest way to get around, so watch for some of the more road course aces to probably do well here tonight.
I think that's where we should expect Phil Krause and Sean Campbell to run relatively decently, although with practice underway right now, I regret to inform you that that is not the case. Campbell down in the 16th position, Krause down in 18th, although let's be honest, practice not that important. Average number of cautions is 3, but we've seen one race go with just 1 caution, and a couple races in the last few years seeing just 2 cautions. When it comes to the fuel mileage, it's a 150-lap race with a fuel window of between 49 to 53 laps. So DJ, hypothetically, if we went green from flag to flag, there's not much that we're thinking about in terms of fuel mileage today.
No, there's really not, and I think it's going to be a pretty easy 2-stop strategy here for these drivers. The only time it's going to get a little bit sketchy is if we get a green flag run to the end where you've got to kind of extend that fuel a little bit more. But we will have to see how that plays out. I think everybody just banking on a 2-stopper here today, and it's going to have to be the roll of the dice that sees how it will actually play out.
We'll take a look from up above as well, but pit entry here I think is always a bit of a talking point as well. Green flag pit stops will always put you down a lap on most ovals. This is one of those curious tracks, like many short tracks, where you're in danger of going 2 laps down. How does that impact the way that you think about things as we head into what NBC would like to call the danger zone?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really and truly going to put the impetus on you to try to delay that pit stop cycle as long as possible. We may see tire changes around here, but I don't really see too much of it playing into account, and so as a result, the undercut isn't going to be all that much, because when these cars lose fuel, when they get lower on fuel, they become absolute rocket ships around this track, and so you're able to run faster the lower you are on fuel, and so you want to keep going as long as possible when you're on a low tank.
In your mind, you said that road course drivers have a good chance of being strong here. That's something that when I started transitioning into open-wheel oval racing, I was told about Indianapolis as well. What is it about these sort of flatter ovals in your mind, DJ, that lends themselves a little bit more to a road course driver trying to transition their way into oval racing?
Well, if you just look at the corners, they are set up a little bit more like a traditional road course corner where the cambering is not going to be so massive that it feels like you're on an actual cliffside. But one of the reasons that for here it is so crucial and to be a road course driver to be able to get that around here is really and truly because it's not flat out. It's not like you're running at Homestead where you can absolutely keep your foot pinned to the floor and you've got to be navigating the draft. It's about finding the right rhythm in terms of backing off, finding the right rhythm in terms of applying the brakes, looking for a little bit of an over-under move, trying to run a different line through the corner to get the pass by your teammate. It's all of those things together that just make this feel a little bit more like a road course.
Well, with practice ready to wind down, let's take a very quick look at Sean Campbell in practice, showing us just how difficult this track can be and what you want to try and avoid if you do run yourself into the wall.
Oh, oof. That's exactly what can go wrong here, and as we saw there, don't think he's going to be the only driver up into the wall tonight.
So let's talk track temperatures very quickly here with the qualifying session just getting underway. It's a toasty one in terms of track temperature, even though ambient maybe not so bad for those of you that prefer using the inferior units. It's 113 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, inferior units, however you want to say it, Arjuna, that's what I'm going to go with. But one way or another, the track is toasty. And that is going to be a big thing here today. I think you're going to have to see some drivers searching around for a little bit of grip. But this natural setup that they have here for today, remember this is a fixed setup series, it is a little bit understeery. And so you've got to chuck the car into the corners a little bit more. It's going to make it more stable as things wear off. But the big problem is going to be on corner exit. Watch for a driver or two to push up the wall here a little bit if they get on the throttle too early.
Lap 1 or lap 2, which one will be quicker?
I think it's going to be lap 2 because I think they're going to try to carry as much momentum as possible around the outside coming through on lap 1 and then let it run and run wild on lap 2.
So we'll find out because I wanted to get your answer before we saw the times coming in. Stouffer on lap 1 so far fastest, but 25.541 for Richie Hearn. 1,000th back for now is Mark Cohn. Here's Big Joe Hassett though in that number 11 machine on lap number 2. He's going to find his way up to 3rd, but Matt Taylor finds even more improvement on his 2nd lap. He's a good, 4/10 clear of the majority of the field.
Absolutely remarkable there from Matt, really able to get it together, but small margins as Michael O'Brien's going to find him way up into P2, and he's going to be 0.02 of a second off Taylor. And Sirwa, it's down to the millionth of a second between himself and O'Brien.
Incredible, and Chris Fowler, who started near the front, of course, last time on his way to victory lane. Lap 1, 15th, no lap 2 for him. Here's Sean Campbell, 25.185. It's good enough for 6th spot, which is important. Just keep him out of the danger zone. There's Ricky Hardin qualifying up in 8th position as well. George Anzaldo slides his way up to 11th. We're still waiting for plenty of strong contenders.
Yes, we are. Names like Jenkins, Gonzalez, Nunez, Valenzuela, Andrew Wood, all waiting to put down times here as Dan Zegers is going to run that line that I talked about, try to carry as much momentum as possible off of the high line and then dip down low. The trick here in New Hampshire is you actually don't want to get all the way down onto the low lane. You want to keep the car about a lane to a half a lane up off of the lowest line.
Just a reminder, left side of your screen, look at those margins. Top 3 split by 3 thousandths of a second. Where's Zegers going to come in that Team Talent number 88 machine, 25.384. That's going to be only good enough to see him rise to 18th spot. There's still one more Team Talent machine to have a crack at it as Andrew Wood rolls out for his qualifying runs. Jim Herrick's gone up to 20th. David Rodriguez, I was wondering how he was going to run in qualifying. Remember him being so successful, of course, at Iowa. He's down in 29th. The only driver with the worst qualifying time right now is our previous race winner, Marius Valiokas. Luis Gonzalez Nunez up to 8th.
Yeah, good run there for Gonzalez Nunez. Paul Jenkins, my former teammate, able to put in a time there that's good enough for P13 as Andrew Wood is going to bring that Team Talent racing machine out and around. And there you can see that push coming off of the corner, having to catch the car a little bit in that 64 machine. So now he's going to come down, taking that sort of middle low lane that I talked about, brings the car out of 4 right now. Let's see what Andrew Wood's got.
Not a very wood-colored car. 263 should see him jump inside of the top 15, indeed 15th for Woodith. And you'll have some work to do. Don't know if we're actually going to see anyone else with 60 seconds left in this session be able to finish. Phil Kraus has just left pit road. Here's Bruno Miranda in that Hunkus Hollinger Esports machine, the 91, on lap number 1. Doesn't set a time.
No, he's not going to set a time here. I wonder if he maybe made a little bit of contact with the wall, potentially. Here's Bruno Miranda bringing the car around right now as the 91 got a little bit squirrely coming off of turn 2. Now going to dive it down into 3. Let's see what he's got.
Still got the wireframe on that car, by the way. You could pick it out even from here. 419, top 25? 25th right on the button. Not bad so far today. Here's Kraus, lap 1, 25.524. After last week's struggles, Kraus needs to respond by working his way back to the front.
Yeah, he certainly does, and this could be a track for Kraus to do it. Going to bring the car now down into 3. Good lines there. A little bit of a diamond in the middle of the corner as he now comes off at turn 4. Let's see what the number 4 has. Runs out of time.
Well, that's always the danger with leaving it so late, and Phil Kraus will start towards the back. As always, plenty of drama in qualifying, but with Go Fast time in the books, it's time to run you down through your butt kicker starting grid. We're ready to rumble at the Magic Mile for the HyperX New Hampshire 150. Let's run you down through your starting grid. The butt kicker starting grid sees Matt Taylor line up at the very front of the field. It is pole position number 1 for a driver with 7 previous race wins. He's got a teammate alongside in the form of Kiwi Michael O'Brien. David Sira and Mike Rasmus, defending champion on row number 2, with Mark Cohn in the Pink Panther inside of the Candyman, who has won here on 3 previous occasions. He did that consecutively as well. Watch for him. Sean Campbell, a championship leader inside of Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who shows some speed in qualifying, while Christopher and Ricky Harden 9th and 10th positions. Sam Fontaine and Tyler Graf share row number 6, while 13th sees Matt Wagner. Hopefully not an unlucky, unacceptable racing number 2. Paul Jenkins, number 35, rolls on his outside. Andrew Wood, Luke Daniels, 15th and 16th, with series organizer George Anzaldo rolling alongside former American Open wheel driver in the real world, Richie Hearn. Cristobal Valenzuela and then Craig Forsyth bookend your top 20 with Chris Reagan, Hugo Gallus, Dan Zagers, and then Rodrigo Munoz through the top 24. Still plenty more times on the board, and so we cycle through Bruno Miranda, Jim Herrick, Drew White, Joe Hassert, and then Phil Kraus, the major contender, having to work his way from the back, and then kite bombers back through your top 30, the top 15 rows. Chris Fowler, Alex Guyon, David Rodriguez, the final times on the board, along with Marius Valiokus, while Ken Hacker will line up at the very tail end of the 35-car field that's getting stacked up and ready to go on your main straightaway. They're pulling away for their pace lap, and so it's the perfect opportunity for us to run you down through today's featured onboard cameras. First up, it's Chris Fowler, who rides with Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
Second on board camera, it's going to be the number 8 Next Level Racing machine of Matt Taylor, sponsored by Next Level Racing. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com.
Ricky Harden rides with Arena, a new streaming experience for esports. Come and get involved and make a difference on arena.tv.
And in the number 9, it's the HyperX on board for Dustin Wardlow. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Doing plenty of tire warming now. If this race went green from flag to flag, we'd be racing for just over 60 minutes. It's a race that's never gone caution-free. DJ, how much confidence do you have in the guys on track right now?
I think we may see a little bit of a scruffiness right here off of the start, but once they settle in, it could be some good green flag running.
This is a track that is unforgiving. The first short track of the season, and the challenges will keep on coming. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the HyperX New Hampshire 150. Matt Taylor brings us to the green after he gets to pole position for the very first time. Great jump from Matt Taylor. David Siwa had a lunge up for second. It didn't work out and now tries to defend from Razmas. Behind them, some 2, some 3 wide action, but a nice tidy start at the end of lap number 1.
Yeah, and we're starting to see some drivers settle into rhythm and start to figure out what they want to run here. I'm seeing some drivers work their way up onto that second lane, some of them keeping it down low. I think it's a little bit of pick your poison here at this point. I haven't seen one advantage one way or the other.
Yeah, just trying to find some clean air for the nose of the car at this point. DJ, you did mention you tried the cars out. A little bit of understeer at times, and I think we may have just had a car in the wall. Might have been George Zaldo. Richie Hearn fires it up the inside, and it's Craig Forsyth in that very distinctive car behind that rides with a great view of the action.
Yeah, and a good line for there from George from taking the high lane to try to be able to keep on that number 10 here as much as possible as they know, excuse me, the 70 as much as possible as they go down into the corner. That's in with Richie Hearn. And you've got to be careful with that understeer coming around when these cars are on full tanks of fuel. You get onto the pedal just a little bit too early mid-corner, and it's going to spit you right out into the outside wall.
Stark contrast between the high banks of Homestead, Miami, and what we've got in store for these drivers here today. Just 2 to 7 degrees of banking. Homestead, Miami, we're talking, what, 12 to 18-ish degrees of banking. Very big difference, and of course, a lot lower speeds when it comes here. They continue to be chock-a-block at the back, starting to be a little bit more stretched out at the front as Taylor and O'Brien, the Graphics LC Madworks teammates, starting to break away from David Siwa, a driver who, let's again reiterate, joined the series as someone that we thought would be an ace on the road courses and would struggle to get up to speed on the ovals, where he's been pretty quick in qualifying since about 18 months ago.
Yeah, he really has, and his race pace has been very, very good as well on all kinds of ovals, because as we talked about, Arjuna, it's a completely different skill running something like Homestead, running something like Pocono, and running a short track like New Hampshire here. It's very, very difficult, and it's all about feeling the car, feeling when you need to get onto the pedal, feeling when you need to get off of it.
Here's a look looking rearwards from David Siwa. You can just see the line that's building up behind. Currently first through 35th, separated by 8 odd seconds, and as the caution flies for the first time today, who has gotten mixed up in this one? I see Jim Herrick as well as the Tiger Hawk SimSport machine of Kite Bombers back going slowly. Slow it down for the first time.
Yeah, and this is going to get the field back together underneath one another. It'll be interesting to see what happens. A single file restart here, so that'll certainly change the dynamics for some of these drivers as we take a look at the replay.
Here we go, out of turn 4. Ooh, Jim Herrick, I think, comes across the line there of Bombers back. Not much he could really do.
Yeah, a little bit of a pinch there down to the inside. Drivers just clearly not having communication here at this point. And this is one of the incidents that you're going to see here. Drivers that are very, very desperate to make a position up because of just how difficult it is. Yeah, a little bit of sticking your nose in there, a little bit of a move over, I would have to say.
So remember, race control. We'll take a look at plenty of these incidents. We'll see if it's an in-race penalty or a post-race penalty. But regardless, something the stewards will review. Now, we got about 7 laps of green flag running under our belts before that caution flew, and therefore I'm not surprised that no one comes into pit lane at the front. It's Paul Jenkins the first to come in from 14th-ish position.
Yeah, and this is going to be just a little bit of a roll of the dice here. And what this tells me here, Arjuna, is these drivers, they don't think they have the outright pace to win this race. They're mired back in the mid-pack or lower in the field, and they're going to take a strategy call. They're going to take a little bit of a roll of the dice here and see if topping up on fuel can maybe get them an edge come the end of the race.
Remember, we said 49 to 53 laps is your fuel window in a 150-lap race. There's not much that we're really talking about in terms of being able to do much in terms of strategy. There's a look at the pace car with its lights still on. And you mentioned single file restarts. At a track like this, where you're going to have your leader coming to the line with still probably 20th position midway through turn 4, sometimes right for those checkups as drivers try and anticipate and jump the start, especially knowing that you can't pass before you actually get to the line.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason you're going to see a lot of drivers here on this restart checked all the way up to the outside, that's just the iRacing rules here, that they've got to be able to prevent that run there. So watch for checkups and watch for, unfortunately, Arjuna, a situation of yellows breeding yellows.
Don't say that. Have some optimism. I'm trying. To be fair, last 3 years, 2 cautions for each of the last 2 years that we've been here on RaceSpotTV. The year before that, just 1 caution. They've been pretty good.
Indeed, they have, and you know, I think once we start to spread out a little bit more, you're not going to see instances like we had of cars coming together. This is going to be much more of a battle for one position, trying to just slowly but surely chip away at those tenths lap after lap, and that's not really the kind of racing that is conducive to the big one, as it were, on an oval track.
Still got lights on, by the way, so lengthy caution periods, just something to keep in mind if we get a late race caution. Now, I said the last 3 years were good. Should we skip over the year before that where we had 7 cautions?
Yeah, we're just going to ignore that one.
Okay,
we're just going to ignore that one.
That race never happened. Dustin Wardlow won that race. It was a second in his 3-year streak here. Qualified 3rd, 2nd, and 6th to win. Where did Dustin Wardlow qualify this time? 6th. A site where the place where he qualified the last time he went to victory lane here.
All right, could be a little bit of a forebearer of things to come there for Wardlow, so we will have to see.
I mean, to be fair, we are probably clutching at straws here as we jump onto
yeah.
your HyperX onboard camera. I mean, just an opportunity for us to talk a little bit more about our great partners over at HyperX.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason we're talking about it, and because this is a track that Dustin knows and likes, and he's going to try to push his way forward. He's down 1 spot. Sean Campbell was able to get the jump on him. He rides in 7th right now, but we're about to go back to green, and times are ready to go.
Wardlow's only led 65 laps across of his 3 race victories. Chris Fowler with just the 1 win, 137 laps. Leading laps apparently not that important here. It is still Taylor from O'Brien at the front with the green flag back in the air here at the Magic Mile. And as you'd expect to the front, a tidy and orderly restart, but the likes of Wardlow under fire from Stouffer. Graf and Nunez already duking it out through 1 and 2 as they work onto that back straightaway. The further back you are, the more checked up you are, the more you have to fight.
Exactly, and this is exactly what I was talking about, Arjuna. When the green flag drops, you're going to have a little bit more of this squabbling, and then the more we go on into a green flag stint, we're going to see more and more single file as the field starts to bring themselves around. A little bit more side by side, farther back down here that we take a look at right now. That's
Chris Fowler trying to work his way up another spot. He's already plus 13 on the day. Gets past Dan Zagers relatively simply. Chris Fowler definitely one to watch. Here's Zager's teammate, though, Andrew Wood. And I am going to lodge a complaint to the livery department at Team Talent about this. I know I'm not that old, but I don't believe there was any wood that looked like that back in 1979.
I would hope not. Otherwise, that's some very, very ugly stain that was put on a wood. And I know there were some strange colors that were put out in wood. That were put out in the 70s, but I don't like that one.
No one would stain wood that color, surely. Right.
I would hope not.
Chris Fowler sends it up the inside of Craig Forsyth now, trying to get up plus 15 positions. Aggressive driving early. How's that going to compromise him on tires, being pinched down low and really being aggressive?
It's going to hurt. It may not look like it here at this circuit, but this is a progressive banking. It goes from 2 degrees up to 7 degrees, so the farther up the track you're able to go, the less wear you're going to put on those tires. Being aggressive early could come back to bite you, but I think it's a matter of risk or reward here for Fowler. He knows he needs to make these positions up quickly, and he's willing to make a sacrifice early on to get himself in the catbird seat.
George Anzaldo giving us a great view from that nose cam. This is one great thing about modern technology. You couldn't do this back in 1979, have a multitude of onboard cameras through the entirety of the field.
No, you certainly could not, and this gives us a really, really great angle of everything as he tries to work down to the inside there of Craig Forsyth, and that's not going to play. But yeah, really and truly, to be able to see these cars from every single angle, it just gives you so much more appreciation for what they are.
Jason Brophy, part of Team Talent, says that Andrew Wood has the ugliest car in the field, no question. So it's not just us. The team agrees as well. So hopefully they can have an intervention. That's what they call them, right?
Yeah. Have a livery intervention. I like that. I'm a fan of that.
I've got to figure out who does the liveries now for Team Talent, because that is a very good question. Checking back in with Big Joe Hassett. This is not to the cars that came down pit lane. Phil Krause is the best of those cars. He's up to 26th position. He's got a lot of work to do today if he wants to have any sort of success.
Well, and remember what we talked about, Arjuna, putting more fuel into the car, yes, it's going to open up your strategy window a little bit more, but it's going to make that car heavier, and as a result, it's going to make that car a little bit slower. So I'm not altogether surprised that we're not seeing these drivers that chose to come down into the pit stops rocketing their way up through the field.
Here's a look on board. You can see the wireframe. Like, I can't not call it out. I'm just, we've all made that mistake, to be fair. We're doing a livery. Oh, no, I exported it. It's still got the wireframe on. I got to export it again.
Yep, go back into your photo editor of choice, tick that box away, then export it, then re-upload it online.
Whoa!
There's that understeer I talked about early on.
I think Miranda was pinching a little bit there as well, and fortunately, Ken Hacker is not going to take them 3 wide. That could have been a whole lot worse. They continue to look pretty feisty in the mid-pack, though. As we check in with Enzaldo, we check in with Dan Zagers as the Team Talent 88 tries to slip up the inside. Look at this as well. Chris Fowler still charging his way on forward.
Yeah, Fowler is aggressive here early on. He knows what he needs to make up, and he knows where he needs to be as he tries to take a look to the inside there of Luke Daniels. Now that's going to be Enzaldo there in a little bit of it. It's Dustin Wardlow. Looks like that may be an internet issue there for Wardlow. He's dropping down through the order.
Hopefully he's able to get that sorted in the nick of time, but the longer it holds off, the worse his chances are that it will recover. Them fanning out, continuing back here. Wardlow does blink back into existence, a 7th spot. I can only imagine what was going through Christopher's mind.
Well, I can tell you as someone who has actually lost internet at this circuit, it's terrifying because you're driving all of a sudden and then it just cuts and the rest of the cars go out around you and you are driving so very close to one another that you are absolutely white-knuckling the car. It's not like it's super speedway where you're, inches from each other going near 200 miles an hour, but just feeling the rhythm around here and knowing what the rhythm of the other drivers are doing, it gets you into such a groove that anything that breaks that really throws your concentration.
Chris Fowler now up the inside of Luke Daniels. Behind them, it's Rodriguez and Zagers. Zagers now looking the long way around. Check in quickly with what happened to Phil Kraus from up above. You tell me what you think here. Kraus maybe not turning in initially as early as Miranda wanted. In my mind, I feel like Kraus had a line, but I'm sure I'm wrong.
Well, let's take a look at it from here. Yeah, this is actually perfect. Let's ride on board with Kraus as he comes down into the corner. Watch the lines as they go.
Kraus definitely understeers out.
Yeah, there's a little bit of movement, but I've got to put a little bit more blame, I think, on that Juncos Hollinger car at the moment.
Also, racing incident.
Yeah, I still think it's a racing incident. If blame is going to be levied, I would put it on that green, white, and black machine, but I don't think blame should be levied.
Not everything has to be a penalty.
No.
Racing incident, they survived. Although I think Phil Kraus did end up holding on to the position. I was not 100% sure about that. Here's Fowler still alongside with Luke Daniels. They're fighting a lot at the back. Are you surprised that they're not fighting that much at the front?
Not at all. I think the drivers at the front are trying to save their tires, and they're in fuel conservation mode. They're trying to give themselves as much as possible to make sure that they can try to get to that 53-lap mark that is going to be about the end of the pit stop window. The money window for this race is going to open with about 25 laps to go. Watch for these drivers up in the top 5 or so that haven't swapped around positions. That's when they're going to go crazy. Up until then, there's no need to go crazy.
We've got a decent run going right now, and I will just bring up the fact that the longer we go, the more that traffic becomes a consideration, because already your leader's going to catch Richie Hearn, who had to duck down to the pit lane on the last restart. Clearly a little bit more damage plaguing his car, but the front of the field only about half a lap away from the back of the field. That's now a good 12 seconds behind Matt Taylor.
Yeah, and that lap traffic can cause a big headache here for these leaders. There's not really an easy way to let drivers on by if you are a lapped car, because that requires you getting up all the way to the high side, and that puts you in danger. It puts you into the marbles, and so you kind of have to be a little bit sketchy if you're going to want to let these leaders pass. And so it's going to be very interesting. I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility to see a driver or two really held up by some lapped cars.
They are really juking it out back in the field. Here's Zagers and Rodriguez as The Nezumi Graphics LC car tries to sling it up the inside with a big send through turn 1. Zager's going to hold on that outside in the 88. Got the two Backfire Motorsports cars in the background going side by side as well. Onto lap 30 of the run. Still, these are drivers that, remember, did not come down the pit lane during our previous caution cycle, and so their tires just that little bit more worn. Given what a good run he's having so far, it's probably the time to talk about our arena driver profile. Now, Chris Fowler says that he's cursed. 44 starts, 22 top 10s, 9 top 5s. He's had 4 poles, 1 win. Those are stats that do somewhat seem cursed. It was back here at New Hampshire, 12 months ago, that he grabbed his very first victory.
It was indeed, and that was a great moment for Chris. And he's always one of those drivers that is right there. He's always in the conversation. He's always close to getting it done. And I kind of have to agree with him a little bit. There is a little bit of a curse that's lingering over his head. And I frankly thought Arjuna last season, when he was able to get the victory here at New Hampshire, that was going to blow open the doors and we were going to see him tick off 3, 4, 5 wins right in a row. That's just the caliber of driver that Fowler really is.
I think after this race last year, it got pretty rough for him for a while, didn't it? Yeah, no. At the end of the day, he's led 137 laps here coming into this race. It's a place that he's been quick at, and hopefully if he stays out of trouble, he's got plenty of time to work up another 13 positions. He's already gained 17 positions so far. He'll definitely fancy his chances, especially if we get a safety car that bunches the field back up, because just a way to visualize what I was talking about earlier with the traffic. Here's Matt Taylor into turn 1. Stragglers still heading off into turn 3.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing here, is that there is a pretty big gap in terms of the ability level when you drive New Hampshire. I'll be the first to admit I was absolutely at the back of the field here when we ran 3 years ago. And you're seeing a big gap develop between Munoz, Valiocas, and Guyan there, those 3 running off the back. And that's just a lack of that rhythm that we talked about. They haven't really unlocked the secret here yet. I've been watching them, and they don't look comfortable. And that's going to be a big concern, I think, when the leaders come up behind them, is you don't want a car that isn't predictable when you go to lap them.
They're driving like I'm driving, is what you might say.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Just so we're clear. Again, fixed setup. You're limited what you can do, basically 2 hands, 2 feet, and figure it out by yourself. I am still amazed at the level of just back and forth action going on back here. Still Rodriguez and Zagers. Look at how much they've got dropped by Andrew Wood. Now 1.5 seconds behind them. And Zaldo, Valenzuela, Gallers, Forsyth, White. They're all just going at it so hard that they're forgetting how much time they're really costing each other.
Yeah, that's the real detriment of running in a battle like this. And whoa, as we're going to have a little bit of 3 wide coming down the main straightaway there, as drivers got a little bit squirrely coming off of turn 4. But to my point, you've got to weigh the risk versus reward on going 2-3 wide like this. Oh, contact there. Yeah,
this is a bit scary right now, if I can be totally honest with you. We're looking rearwards from Phil Kraus. You've got Forsyth, White, Miranda, Hacker. You said cautions might breed cautions, but surprisingly, they kept it quite tidy on the restart. Already, though, Marius Valiocas, coming off his victory 7 days ago, is off towards pit lane.
Now, this is a little bit surprising for me. We're not near the end of the pit stop cycle, the fuel window that we've talked about, and if he's going to be coming in at this point, this would almost lock him into a 3-stop strategy, which, if my math is correct, is going to be massively slower than a 2-stop. So I'm not really sure what Marius is doing here at this point.
The fact that he's been in pit lane for 20 seconds and counting means that I think there's something a little bit more missed there. We'll see if we can catch up with him if he's not heading back out onto track. He does deserve his interview from HyperX Victory Lane. So we'll try and dial him up on the phone in that WMP Racing number 23 machine. Here's your leader into lap traffic, by the way. I say lap traffic, it's one car in the form of Richie Hearn, who is already 2 laps down, so you wonder how hard he's going to fight your leaders here.
Yeah, I've got to think Richie's going to get out of the way here. And, you know, Richie is a very, very good driver. I remember very vividly trying to follow his tire tracks going through Mosport and just getting schooled by him. But more importantly than him being a good driver, he is an incredible sportsman. If you see this move come up to the inside, if Taylor makes his indications very, very clear, Richie's going to get out of the way.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be too hardly fought, but having said that, we're going on, what, 3 odd laps? Stuck here in the status quo for the time being. Yet to see a swap around just yet. How much does dirty air affect the car, even if it's just one, given that Matt Taylor's enjoyed clean air for the preceding 43 laps so far this race?
It really does affect you. Even though we're only hitting speeds here of about 150 to 170 miles an hour down some of these straightaways, the dirty air really does throw you for a loop because it affects it in 2 ways. One, it's the Venturi tunnels underneath the car that air is a little bit hotter as it gets sucked up under the track. And then there's the traditional downforce that's generated from the top of the car. So you find yourself in the slipstream of another driver, the car's going to get squirrely. It's going to just feel like it's skating over the track a little bit. And you've got to be very, very careful with your inputs because if you get too aggressive with those, it's just going to wear off those tires more and more.
Well, finally Taylor's through. O'Brien will try and follow on the back straightaway and try and put a car between the Nezumi Graphics Madworks cars and David Sirois behind in that Raven Lavoie Motorsports machine. The 99 looking still relatively comfortable. Razmas not really within touching distance as it's stretched out a little bit within your top 5 or so. Traffic is going to play its own little part, you'd have to say. Valiokas, by the way, I think is indeed done for the day. His car is still parked in pit lane, which is a shame because we did see last year that it wasn't just the road courses where he could be quick.
Yeah, very much so. He is a very, very speedy driver, and I would assume what probably happened here in Marius is just a simple issue of getting a little bit of that understeer, running up the track and making contact with the outside wall. Now, it wasn't a big enough of an issue that it really brought our attention, but what can happen when you make that contact, Arjuna, is that it'll actually damage the underside of the car. It'll bend the frame a little bit, and once that happens, once you lose those Venturi tunnels underneath the car, your race is done. The car is not going to handle the same way. It's going to lose a lot of speed, and you are going to feel like you are driving a tugboat.
And I guess that it's not something you can realistically get fixed up too easily either. These are cars that can only get fixed up so much, I would guess, here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, very much so. And it takes a while to get them fixed. That's the other crucial part. There is a exchangeable, for lack of a better term, front nose structure that can be taken off and put a new one in place, but that still takes about 30 to 40 seconds because we hadn't really developed the sort of clip technology, the modular building technology that we now see in modern race cars.
I mean, yeah, endurance racing has really taken that to the next level, right? Audi able to change a gearbox in, what, like 6 minutes?
Yep.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Probably only 4 laps away, I think, from getting into the real heart of the first pass of traffic, but it's going to come right as we head into a pit stop window, and so I would wonder if you're a race leader, yes, you can go faster if you run the tank dry, but if you catch traffic, are you going to lose more time than your light fuel load is going to gain? Is it worth gambling to get out of potential danger?
I think it is, Arjuna. I think it is worth it when we see Matt Taylor rock up to the back here of Rodrigo Munoz, and that should be within a couple of laps' time. It'll be about 1.8 seconds as they cross over the line right now. If I'm Taylor, the minute I start to really feel that dirty air coming off the back of the 09 machine, I'm down into pit lane.
See how it is going to shake on up. I think Munoz is going to pull out of the way initially on the back straightaway and then fade back up. Taylor's going to try and send it the long way around and duck it back underneath. That's masterfully done in the traffic to see that coming, and he heads up enough. O'Brien's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive with his juke on through. And they do have a little bit more clean air now in front of them with which they can benefit. No tire, surely, at this point in green flag pit stops.
No, I think the only time you... Oh, yellow!
Well, that changes it. It's Bruno Miranda.
Yeah, and that car, we've seen it be a little bit squirrely. We suspected it may have had damage earlier on, and it just didn't look healthy. Oh!
That's a battle that was going to go bad eventually.
Yeah.
Let's look from up above. Talk us through it.
Well, you see Miranda dive down to the inside here. It actually looks like he tries to send a little bit of a slide job on the car, but the understeer just absolutely catches him out. I think he may have thought he was clear and tried to move up the track a little bit more on that number 4 machine. It just nowhere to go there, and I've got to put that blame squarely on Miranda there. He clearly drifted up the track onto Kraus.
If the first one was a racing incident, I think we can say this one probably less of one.
Yeah, very much so. That is a little bit of an unfortunate situation, I think, with some damage on the car, a little bit of a driver error, but altogether you've got to put the blame firmly there on the number 91, as it looks like the entire field is going to be coming down into the pits.
I would be shocked if even those that pitted on the previous caution don't come in, because they're basically due for a pit stop anyway, so everyone will be in, and we will see a race off a pit road. We're not going to talk about it. Instead, we're going to chat with Marius Valiokis, and we'll ignore today. We'll go back to 7 days ago first, Marius. Congratulations, your first victory in the Lionheart Retro Series.
Well, thank you. Yes, 7 days ago was a little bit of better of a race. But yeah, thank you. Wish this one was that way exciting, but we'll see how it goes for everybody else.
We'll ignore this race again for the time being, but let's talk about that final lap that unfortunately we missed on the broadcast over at Watkins Glen. I heard it was a fantastic side-by-side fight through the final lap.
Yeah, no, coming into before the last lap, penultimate lap, I got loose into, goodness, I don't even know what the turn is, the third to last corner, and Michael got past me, and then, yeah, I was just kind of fighting into the carousel and somehow made it stick and was enough ahead to take the lead. I think I finished also as well with, the car was sputtering as I was coming to line, so it was that fun.
You timed it perfectly, it sounds like. Let's talk briefly then about today. What happened?
I'm not really sure. I think that wreck at the beginning there tapped my car in some way that can't be fixed, and it was just falling off a cliff. Tire wear was just, I mean, yeah, very bad. And I was feeling, and I, already pitted to check a fuel because I was in the back, so I was like, why not? And then there was no optionals or anything like that, but it just kept falling away, and there's nothing I could do to get it back.
So we got Pocono in a week's time. It's a bit of a relentless run for the series. You're also pulling double duty with the sports cars. How's it been bouncing back and forth between a very new BMW M Hybrid V8 and a slightly older Lotus 79?
Very different driving styles. This car is, I always describe it as like a Mario Kart, because the more you drift it, the better it somehow goes, which obviously for road cars is not the best thing in the world. So yeah, it's definitely a big changes in how you approach corners and things like that. And going into Watkins especially is going to be, we drove it one way for this Lotus 79, and the BMW is going to be massively different.
Well, commiserations for today. Congratulations for 7 days ago, and hopefully, Marius, we're chatting with you next week with another back-to-back week of Lionheart action.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have a good rest of your day, and thank you for this.
Marius Valiokis. Disappointed we didn't get to chat with him. Glad we got to right that wrong, at least, DJ. Unfortunate. Things happen in racing, and he'll be back in a week's time, ready to go once again for the first of our Triple Crowns.
He will indeed, and I think with everything we've seen from Marius, he very well could be a contender in that race. Pocono, the ultimate track, the ultimate oval that drives like a road course. We know Marius has got speed at quick road courses. I think he could be a contender.
Well, pace car is about to pull off, and with our second caution period in the books, it is going to be Matt Taylor that has led quite comfortably so far here in the HyperX New Hampshire 150. Green flag pit stops interrupted or not even allowed to get through. We're racing once again, and in the single file formation, Mark Cohn sees an opportunity to get to the inside of David Sirois. He's not going to hang about. He knows these restarts are a great time with fresh tires to build an opportunity, and Mark Cohn up to fourth momentarily. Doesn't have the job done just yet.
No, not quite yet. You saw a little farther back in the field some drivers having to really wheel the car around off the corner, getting very, very close. As Cohn's now going to keep looking to the inside here of Sirois. Luckily for them, they're not losing too much time on Mike Rasmus. They've got to be careful. If you keep battling like this, we could see a breakaway from the top 2-3 in the field.
And more importantly, here's Sean Campbell as well, who was about to take it 3 wide, wasn't he?
He thought about it. You could visibly see that car think about it and then go, no.
I'm glad that the Nicolas Cage watching over the shoulder of Sean Campbell told him that was not the wisest thing. What it did mean, though, that I think Sirois got a bit spooked. Cohn's now officially grabbed 4th, and now Campbell tries to get up to the inside of that gold, white, and red machine. There still be a little bit of an overlap into the corner. The Candyman Dustin Wardlow's in the top 10 as well after his 3 previous race victories here. The lack of green flag pit stops has meant that the ordering hasn't been shuffled up too much.
No, it really hasn't. Your top 2, Taylor and O'Brien, exactly where they started this race. And really, there are some big movers and shakers farther back down in the order, looking specifically at Fowler, who we've already highlighted. David Rodriguez up 18 positions here at this point, and Big Joe Hasser up 11 as well. So we've got some movers that are putting some good positions up through the field, but we're not seeing overall a lot of movement, Arjuna.
Now here is Fowler, by the way, inside of Samuel Fontaine. Behind, you've got Rodriguez and Wagner going wheel to wheel. Look through. I almost said door to door, then realized you can't do that. The problem is, TJ, I commentated last night on the PRL Xfinity and Truck Series. When you're commentating on the trucks, you've got to call them trucks, not cars. When you're commentating on the Xfinity Series, you can't call them trucks, you've got to call them cars. It's not easy.
No, we've got a lot of things that we have to keep in our head, and it can get very, very confusing. And if you ever wonder why a commentator seems like they're stuttering over their words, it's because they're trying to make sure they say the right thing.
It's because most of the time we know we're saying the wrong thing, and so we've got to make sure that at least it's not totally, completely off the reservation, so we're not going to get fired. I've never been fired. At least I don't think I have. Hugo hasn't told me about it.
I was going to say, I don't think I've been fired. I still am on good terms with every broadcast company that I work with, so we'll see.
I haven't sworn on air either, so I'm good there.
I haven't done that either. I've come close.
I've come close too. I've come very close. Oh, that was a jink in the background, wasn't that? Maybe a lapped car because I don't see anyone moving on the timing screen. There's still Fowler now officially up the inside of Fontaine. Just see how hard he's having to work, though. Fresh tires making it easier than it would have been 10 laps ago before the caution, but now everyone's equalized a little bit more. Halfway through the race, if we are still green, we've had the 2 cautions so far, what would you be thinking at the front in terms of strategy moving forward?
Keep on keeping on. If you are in about the top, let's say 6, 7 at this point, just keep running where you are. Make sure you're within touching distance of those drivers in front of you. Where you got to start to worry a little bit is about this 7th place gap that's starting to develop between Stouffer and Sirois of about 0.5 of a second. And again, back between Luis Gonzalez-Nunez and Dustin Wardlow. I would try to push a little bit there if I were those cars in particular. Try to just keep myself up to the back of the cars in front of me. Make sure you're in that position to take advantage at the end of the race. But you're not thinking about trying to make moves here at this point if you're up in the top 10. You're thinking about getting to that final 30, 25 laps.
One thing that I will kind of say is that I said at the start of this broadcast, 3 races, 3 different challenges. Next week is Pocono. That's a 4th race with a 4th different challenge. NBC, as part of their NTT IndyCar Series coverages, on a couple of occasions talked about the fact that Dustin Wardlow has his internet issues once again, hopefully just temporary. But how there's road courses, there's street courses, and then there's ovals. I don't feel like that's fair because no 2 ovals, for the most part at least in open wheel racing, ignoring cookie cutter tracks, are the same.
Well, Arjuna, I'll even make an argument for cookie cutter tracks.
No, don't you do it.
No, not defending them, but saying that they are a little bit different. It's a widely different experience running Chicagoland, for example, than it is running Charlotte, than it is running Texas.
Fair.
They are different tracks. I much prefer the anomaly, not the 1.5-mile-ers tracks. The disparity of ovals across the U.S., because that's where we see the most of them, create incredible challenges. I consider myself an oval driver. I love to drive ovals. That's my bread and butter. I can't figure out this track. I can't figure out New Hampshire. And that is what is amazing about it.
How did you do in 2021 here?
My internet disconnected on me,
Okay.
but before that, I was running somewhere around dead last.
No, that doesn't matter. You just were meant to say that your internet disconnected on you. Then it's all excuse. Racing driver excuses. That's how it works,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
That's what I've been told. Chris Fowler, by the way. Next up is Tyler Graf on his list. Don't think it's going to be long. Graphics LC have really formed Nezumi Graphics LC, to give it the full and proper title, formed a mega team here because they not only have the Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, they also have, I think it's Drew White, Mark Cohn, that are in the Nezumi Graphics LC Special machines. And so I think if we take a look at those team logos once again on that left side of the screen, look how many of those dark little circles there are inside of the top 13. There's 7 of them.
Well, it's what we talked about at the beginning of the race when we talked about that team's championship. It's strength in numbers. You want as many bullets in the chamber as possible when you try to fight for this team's championship. And so I think by having all of them working together like this, it's just going to benefit them, because even if you're dealing with sister teams, you may still have a little bit of conversation back and forth among those teams, and that will allow for better racing and better communication and a better chance to get at least one of those drivers up into victory lane.
I think we can all agree that on the ovals, it's relatively... You have a little bit more spare brain power to be able to communicate with others, as Rodriguez jinks to the inside of Fontaine. How are you on the road courses? Because I'll tell you from personal experience, my teammate is Adam Blocker. He will not talk to anyone during a road course race, to the point where he will mute himself and remove himself from any sort of a distraction. Definitely not the case on an oval, where he's talking away about strategy and whatnot.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Adam. That's very much how I am, that on an oval, you have those moments to breathe a little bit more. There are times I do have on my wheel when I choose to race, I do have a toggle mute that I will throw on if I'm involved in a very, very close battle, that I just need to get those distractions out of the way. But yeah, I agree with Adam there on that, that's kind of the way that I prefer to run as well.
Interesting. Maybe it's because I did a lot more endurance racing than anything back in my racing days, but I got fairly comfortable at being able to hold a conversation and drive. Now, of course, you've got the exceptions like the Circuit de la Sarthe, where you've got long straightaways and things, but I could chit-chat on the Nordschleife. I don't know. For the most part, you put me in an Indy car at the Nordschleife, and no, I'm not talking during that. Phil Krause up the inside of Matt Wagner. That was 16th spot. Krause up 13 positions so far after winning round number 1. Round 2 didn't go his way. I still want to know what his lap time would have been in qualifying if there were 2 more seconds on that clock.
Yeah, I would have too. It looked like that was a good lap time coming together, and obviously this rise up through the order here from Krause up 13 positions is a little bit indicative that he had some raw pace. I don't think we have to write him off quite yet. We're up just over the halfway point here in the race. He's already up 13. It is going to get exponentially harder as he gets farther and farther up in the field to overtake a driver or two. But I like what I'm seeing here out of Krause. I don't know if a win's going to be possible without a little bit of strategy hijinks, but I certainly think he could be looking at a top 10 here today.
Well, we missed out on green flag pit stops in our first cycle through. Are we going to get some strategy hijinks already halfway through the HyperX New Hampshire 150? You're watching RaceSpotTV for coverage of round 3 of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. Don't go anywhere. The run to the checkered flag coming up next at the Magic Mile. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and the third challenge of the Lionheart Retro Series. We've headed to New Hampshire and to the Magic Mile for the HyperX New Hampshire 150, where Matt Taylor has led for an almost perfect 85 laps so far. Halfway through the race, halfway through the fuel run, still plenty of excitement left to play itself out. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to have your company here on RaceSpotTV alongside myself. DJ Clark's here in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth, and you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing. DJ, this has been a really fun race so far. Plenty of storylines of drivers working their way up through the field. Yes, we've had 2 cautions so far, but it's been one of those races that's flowed and flown on by. It's been delightful.
Yeah, it really has. It's had a very nice ebb and flow to it here, and some drivers that you saw being very aggressive at the start of a green flag run, backing it off a little bit now at this point. And Arjuna, we're about to enter into the fun time of the race. We're getting pretty close here to the fuel window opening up, and that, because of the 2 cautions that we had early on, everybody making the pit stop at lap 54, I think is going to give us a pretty wide window on when you're going to be able to come down.
I think the question that we were kind of wondering is who saves the fuel, because we always talk about it. Car gets faster the lighter it is on fuel. You want to go as long as possible. That's going to be a factor. If we get into the really heavy factor of traffic, that might be a consideration as well. But having said that, still about a half a lap between your leader and the real back of the pack. There's a couple of stragglers in the form of the 64 of Andrew Wood and the 70 of Richie Hearn that they'll have to deal with, but Wood is going to go 1 lap down. Richie Hearn is already 3 laps down. Not sure how much fighting there will truly end up being. Like we said, though, it's been pretty fun, but mostly because at the back of the pack, it's where they've all been tussling. Here's a look at the likes of Chris Fowler, who's up 19 positions. Behind him, David Rodriguez, plus 20.
Yeah, moving their way forward. What's going to get interesting here, though, is Arjuna, we've got a couple of big gaps starting to develop between Wardlow and Stouffer, between Harden and Nunez, and I think that's going to be what Fowler's going to come up against here when he is able to get by, if he is able to get by, Graf and Harden. I'm curious to see how quickly he's going to be able to make up that gap there. You can actually see it on your screen right there in front of him.
I'm being told, by the way, that Sean Campbell is quite bored behind the wheel of his Lotus 79, and so he's very, very intrigued to come and drop by the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. Sean Campbell, do we have a copy?
You do.
So you wanted to come talk to us. You clearly aren't having to work very hard there in 5th position.
I mean, there's not really much we can do right now. I don't think there's not much anybody can do. I guess we weren't expecting the dirty air to hit as hard as it has, so we're all just kind of driving Formula 1 style, you know?
I gotcha. Does that mean that there's not really much fuel saving that you can do right now to try and maybe go a couple of laps longer and get a bit of an overcut?
No, I don't think so. I think the people that did the stop earlier in the first caution, I think that might be a little bit interesting at the end.
Why?
Especially if we get another caution. Like, if we get another caution, they might be good on fuel. Depends on how much they took, I guess.
Ah, okay, so you're saying that maybe they might have a little bit more in the tank. So you didn't fill up the tank in your pit stop is what you're saying?
No, I did fill up the
Okay.
tank. I'm talking about the first caution when the back half of the grid pitted.
Yes, but they all came in with you on that last caution as well.
Oh, alright. That was a pretty long run, you're right.
Yes, okay, no, it's good. Commentators make mistakes on strategy. It's good to know you guys do as well. We'll let you go and drive. Is there anything you'd like to tell the viewers, though, about this experience at New Hampshire?
It's a fun track. I think with a little bit more rotation, the racing would be incredible. It still is incredible, though, the fact that we're able to run this long without anything happening. Please don't jinx it.
One more question before I do let you go, actually. Explain the Where's My Pipes for everyone watching.
Oh. So, there is a game called Factorio, which is about building a factory, right? I don't know if you heard of it. And there's a running gag that me, Marius, and Oscar Coper have when we play, where we'll yell at each other when we run out of pipes, because fluids is a really important part of the game.
There you go.
That's it.
Sean Camp, I wasn't sure if you were done. Thank you for telling the story. We'll let you go for the time being. And so now we know the story behind the WMP.
There, we know it, and we learned he's a Factorio player, and we learned, Arjuna, that he can multitask like nobody's business. You know, talking to a teammate about strategy and saying, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I'm feeling in the car, that's one thing. But to be able to have a full conversation like that, that is impressive from Sean Campbell.
I like how he was wrong about the strategy, though, because it makes me feel better about the fact that I'm usually wrong about it on broadcast. We got the Nürburgring 24 coming up in a few weeks' time. I'm glad that strategy there is usually quite simple, because you know that, okay, this is such a long lap that there's basically maybe one lap of a window. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, when you talk to folks about oval racing in particular, strategy on oval racing is the most exciting part of it. When you talk about diving into the pits, getting that fuel window right, getting all of those things correctly, that I think is what makes oval racing really fascinating to me, is it is the ultimate strategic race. Whether you're running here at New Hampshire, whether you're running at Iowa, whether you're running at Indianapolis, it doesn't matter the length of the oval, the strategy is so crucial to get right.
And now with coming to 50 to go, we know that we're good to get to the end if you want to pit from here. We're on to lap 45 of the run for the drivers. Of course, included a lap or two under caution at the start. See if we do end up having another untimely caution, all things considered, that interrupts what might be a rather fun run of green flag pit stops. Chris Reagan leaves the lane as Andrew Wood enters. And remember, with the pit stop time here being around 31 seconds, you'll go a lap down. You may even go 2 laps down the further back in the queue that you are.
Yeah, you very well could, and that's where I think you're going to see drivers trying to push as late as possible in this stint. Again, for 2 reasons. 1, you don't want to get trapped down a lap, 2 laps down like that, and 2, these cars are rocket ships on light fuel, and you want to make every bit of that fast running count.
Look at who's closing up on second. Our defending champion in the Nezumi Graphics LC number 1. Now within 4/10 of the number 45 machine. I don't feel like we're going to see too much aggression. It was interesting to hear that Sean Campbell was telling us that he feels like there's a bit too much dirty air, especially the further back in line you seem to go.
I mean, that's not altogether surprising. That's a little bit of what I experienced when I ran this race 2 years ago, Arjuna. Dirty air is very real in these Lotus 79s. Remember, these are cars that aren't made with the sort of modern understanding of aerodynamics. These are cars that are trying to take every single advantage of aerodynamic ability as possible with almost no constraints built around them. So it's not like today where the cars are actually engineered to promote good and close racing. These cars were just made to go fast.
As it should be in my mind, but that's a philosophical conversation for another day. Interesting point of discussion, though, is the fact that last year Chris Fowler led 137 of the 142 laps on his way to the victory. The year before, it was 52 of the 142, 60 of the 150. Historically, the driver that's led the most laps has not always been the one to win the race, but maybe with this understeer that we're seeing, drivers having to deal with, maybe it's that much more difficult to pass in pole position, on course to be the first repeat position to enter HyperX victory lane. There's Christopher already in pit lane.
Yeah, coming on in here at this point, and Stouffer's going to take tires here. That's going to answer one of our questions that we had, whether or not any drivers were going to take the time to take tires and try to get that back on its way. But Stouffer's going to come out here in 23rd, it looks like, and I think only a single lap down.
See where your race leader is, still in towards turn 3, so it will only be 1 lap down. Lap time fall off, it's not really been too much. That's the other thing to remember. Bias ply tires, they're designed to go a full race distance back in the day, and so we're not talking 2 seconds of fall off like you might do with modern oval tires. Instead, you do start to pick up the speed as we get towards the end of the run as well. Fastest lap for your race leader is a 25.2. Last time by 25.256.
That's pretty good consistency, but it's going to be a slower lap this time because our leader, Matt Taylor, comes down into pit lane.
And there was a big puff of smoke in front of him. I think that was Ken Hacker, who has at a very awkward angle, found his way into the box. Also following in your race leader is Ricky Harden, and this was the question that I had, DJ. Who could save some fuel behind their race leader?
Yeah, exactly, and it looks like here O'Brien and Rasmus have been able to do just that, potentially Mark Cohn as well. So there he's going to come down into pit lane. It looks like all of these drivers just trying to push as late as possible. Here comes Taylor back out and up to speed, and everybody else just keep it on, keep it on.
Campbell, Nunes, they head to pit lane right now, but still O'Brien extending the run as long as possible. This traps his teammate in the danger zone where if a caution came out, Matt Taylor is scored as 1 lap down, and O'Brien's not going to come in this lap because he went around the outside of some of the other traffic. Rasmus comes in this time by, though. O'Brien's done a great job in terms of fuel management.
Yeah, done a fantastic job here in being able to really put that rocket ship to good effect, but this is going to be the real question here. Where is Taylor going to come out in regards to those leaders that have just dove down into pit lane and are coming out now?
There's Rasmus heading into his stall. Taylor's come out in front of Campbell. I think I'm more curious where he's going to feed out in comparison to your defending series champion. There goes Rasmus off and away from the lane. He's got a bumpy pit lane access road to deal with. Taylor's already getting himself up to speed, and even though Rasmus has really maximized the track, it's really the overcut that's seen him gain almost 2 full seconds on the number 8.
Wow, that is some remarkable stuff here from him. And now my question is going to be is just how many positions Chris Fowler is going to be able to gain, as he's the only driver that has yet to come down into pit lane here at this point. My goodness gracious, talk about an effective overcut here, Arjuna.
Look at this for Michael O'Brien. He'll come out in front of Mike Rasmus, and so your question about Chris Fowler is very, very pertinent, not for the race lead, but to try and get Chris Fowler potentially up maybe to the top 10, if not into the top 5. It is going to be O'Brien that has the net race lead, though. Rasmus in close pursuit, and then 2 full seconds back to Taylor, who's more concerned about Cohn, Campbell, and Sirah behind, as we watch Chris Fowler rolling off and away from the lane.
All right, he's going to get himself up to speed, and I think your assessment there is going to be just about right, Arjuna, as it looks like he is going to be up into about 9th position directly behind Dustin Wardlow. So talk about a good jump. That'll be up 22 on the day for Fowler.
What he needed. And so even if the caution didn't come out, win-win for Chris Fowler to go as long as possible. Now, Matt Taylor has been quick so far today. If he's able to pull up, he'll bring Mark Cohn, he'll bring Sean Campbell with him. But if there is dirty air to contend with, if there's lap traffic to play its part as well, it's going to be the bold that ends up in HyperX victory lane in about 35 laps time.
Yeah, it most certainly is, and we're going to have to see exactly who is going to be able to do it. Been watching Rasmus here just a little bit, watching his lines as he comes through. He is really searching for that clean air to try to make sure it is going to be as good as possible for him, and he's going to be able to keep himself having clean air on the front of that car.
Looking rearwards from your race leader, you can see the margin back to Taylor, who's actually struggling to close the margin. 25.502 for O'Brien last time by. It's a 25.658 for Taylor, lost a 10th and a half.
Yeah, lost a 10th and a half there as they go. Just going back to check out the replay, by the way, both O'Brien and Rasmus did take tires on that last pit stop, so there's going to be almost nothing separating them here when it comes to grip out on the track.
Good to know. Curious what tires they took. See those movers and shakers, plus 22 for Fowler. He's looked very, very impressive today. While David Rodriguez is trying to make that plus 20 for him as he tries to fight with Christopher. For Phil Krause to be plus 17, I think he will be rather happy to at least accumulate some decent points as he tries to reignite a championship charge.
Yes, he tries to get it back online here and try to see what he can do. Every point, every position is going to matter here. A little bit of a look there behind for that number 13 of Stouffer as he tries to be able to get a line through the corner but just didn't play out.
We've already set the livery police off on Andrew Wood. I want to set it off on Chris Stouffer, not because I don't like this 40 racewear car. It's just because when I think of Chris Stouffer and paint schemes, I think of chrome. Can we get a chrome blue going is what I'll ask.
Yeah, I can go for that. It's also confusing because Craig Forsyth for so many seasons
has been that, yes.
Yeah, it's the Forsyth blue of way back in the day, and so now Forsyth is running in what has to be said is a beautiful multi-tone sort of retro livery here, but I'm so used to seeing him in that baby blue, it throws me off. As we've got a battle here, this is going to be, I believe, Wardlow and Fowler.
It is, and it's for 8th position. These are 2 previous race winners. Wheel to wheel off of turn 4. And look how much Fowler is squeezing. He knows that he can trust the Candyman. I'm not sure how much I trust the internet connection of Dustin Wardlow today, though, given the few lengthy dropouts that he's seen. Fowler plus 23, now up into the 8th position, although Jewish Candy, number 9, going to be back up the inside and trying to fight on forward.
Yeah, trying to work his way forward. I think the gaps here, I thought maybe about 20 laps ago, 20, 30 laps ago before the pit stop cycle, that Wardlow was going to have a chance at the win here, knowing how good he is in New Hampshire. I just think those gaps are a little bit too big here at this point for him to be able to make up. But a good top 10 finish for Dustin, that is going to be good.
Hey, a late race caution changes everything, and it would change things at the front. Your leader's dicing through traffic, and O'Brien has been able to separate himself from Razmas by about 0.8 of a second out of turns 1 and 2. O'Brien up the inside of, I think that's Craig Forsyth in the very distinctive colors. Matt Taylor is not closed at all. Still 1.7 seconds off the back of Razmas. If anything, his gap to O'Brien, his teammate, has grown since the pit stop cycles, and now within 30 laps to play, Michael O'Brien looking unassailable.
Yeah, he just looks like he is able to pull away here for it at this point, just absolutely pulling away up to 0.9 of a second, 1 full second here. This is exactly what O'Brien needs to do. He's in clean air. For the most part, he's got some lap traffic to deal with, but it looks like he's able to navigate him wonderfully.
Michael O'Brien has actually led 3 laps here in the past, so he's led a couple. Now, where have his victories come from? I think that's the question I'm just trying to remind myself, because O'Brien's had the 2 victories. His first was at the Hungaroring. His last was at Road America. And for someone that has always been in contention on the ovals, it looks like maybe he's on course to grab his first oval victory, which would be a great way in a season with so many different challenges to mark his stamp on that championship hunt in the very first 3 rounds of the season.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he wants to do. The earlier you can get that win, the earlier you can put that good momentum going into the season, the better you're going to feel as a driver, Arjuna. You start off on a good foot and you start to feel more confident, like you can do anything, and that's exactly the kind of mentality you need to have as a racing driver.
I think what we need to do is have, what do they call it in the real world, where if you win a road course, a street course, and an oval, you win $1 million?
I can't remember.
You know what I mean,
sponsor.
though.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The race for whatever. We need one of those in the Lionheart Retro Series. I'm not sure who would come out on top, to be fair. Sean Campbell would be your presumptive favorite, if we're being honest, though. Here's Chris Fowler. They're now plus 24 as he slides past Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Drivers are talking plenty about how it's, Sean Campbell in particular, about how dirty air is playing a big factor. Chris Fowler disproving that right now.
Yeah, it really and truly is. I think if the dirty air hadn't been nearly as much of a disadvantage around here, we would see Fowler well up the order, maybe even fighting for the lead of the race. But as it is, he's really just having to absolutely claw for every single position that he can get.
And he's doing a great job. He might be followed on through on the Team Simrace 24/7 car by the likes of Wardlow, Hardin, Graf. Bit of a stack-up forming behind the yellow and white machine. That's Wardlow up the inside, coming towards 20 to go next time by for your race leader. 20 miles left. Well, it's not 20 miles because I forgot. We haven't ranted about that just yet, have we, DJ? The magic mile is not actually 1 mile in length. It's 1.058 miles.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird little inconsistencies around the thing. But, you know, I mean, Arjuna, to me, it's close enough to a mile. It doesn't faze me too much. If somebody came out tomorrow and told me that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was actually 2.5005 miles, I would say, it's 2.5.
But, you know, the problem with that is NASCAR says it's 1.058 miles. When IRL came here, it was 1.025 miles. Which one's right? Which one's right?
Well, so I know a little bit of this. It's because they take the preferred racing line.
Yes.
and that the line is different for the IRL than it was for NASCAR, and so that's why there was the discrepancy between the two series.
Which is fundamentally the wrong way to measure the distance of the track.
right.
I'm just saying.
You should just measure it around the middle.
Or, yes, whatever metric is used, it should be consistent for every series that goes there.
100%.
Because we have no actual points of comparison for how quick they were going.
Exactly.
I mean, you could try, but that's a data scientist's job. That's not a commentator's job. Luis Gonzalez Nunez has gone from 8th to 13th pretty quickly. I wonder if he did not take tires and he's paying the piper right now, because 26-second lap times, he's not up to speed by any means.
Yeah, not up to speed. It looks like he is just falling down through the order here at this point. I think the next driver to come up behind him is going to be Sam Fontaine, although Sam does have about 2 seconds to be able to get up to him right now. But Kraus, that we watch right now on your screen, doing a very, very good job, up 19. He would be the third highest mover of the day, behind only Chris Fowler and David Rodriguez.
Yeah, he's done a good job. I think he's still got a chance of picking off Hardin and Wardlow if he continues to follow in the line and they pick up plenty more lap traffic, which is going to be a thing. He's your race leader, who is maintaining the gap to Razmas, I'd say. It comes, it goes, as the traffic takes and gives an equal measure to both drivers, but at the line with 16 laps to play, the overcut for O'Brien has worked perfectly to give him this clean air and put him in control of the race.
And he's doing a great job of controlling the race. Now, the lap traffic here is a little bit of a concern, about 0.8 of a second, the gap between himself and Mike Rasmus. And that's come down a little bit from what it was not too many laps ago. But I think as he just continues to pick his way through here, he's got to be smart. He's got to make those high percentage moves. And I think for the rest of the field, they're probably aware that the leader's coming up behind them and that they're involved in a battle. And so that's going to really change everything.
Taylor hasn't really closed. Cohn's not been able to close as well in his potential fight in the Pink Panther, number 39, to snatch up third away from Taylor. Sean Campbell's still there as well. 15 laps to run. One thing that I mentioned early in that first caution that we had was that it was a lengthy caution. The lights didn't go off on the pace car for a while. We saw that in the second caution that we had as well. I just keep that in mind if we do get some shock and horror at the end to spice things up.
Indeed, but I'll tell you what, Arjun, I'm hoping we don't get any of that shock and horror, because I love the cleanliness of this race. It's absolutely been what you want to see here from short track racing from the Lionheart Retro Series.
Oh, we did get a bit of a scare for a moment.
Ooh.
That's Hugo Gallas in the Backfire Motorsports car that ping-ponged off that outside wall through turn 2, able to gather it back up. Meanwhile, Phil Kraus up the inside of Ricky Hardin, this for 9th position.
Yeah, Kraus and Fowler look like the only two drivers here that were really and truly able to make things work in lap traffic. It's a very impressive run from the two of them.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez is headed down to pit lane. I wonder if he's blown a tire.
Maybe blown a tire, maybe brushed the wall at some point. That could be another problem there for him, and he's just got a little bit of that under tray damage like we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that could be the case as well, but it was a sudden drop-off for Nunez more than after the pit stop cycles more than anything. It wasn't anything that was building before. He did seem to have a decent turn of speed here today. Still, Kraus and Hardin in the black and purple / pink machines duke it out. A little bit scared there for Hardin, who runs up the racetrack, allows Kraus to grab 9th. Tyler Groff tried to take advantage. 7 says, no thank you.
Yeah, going to be able to hold on that line. Good heads up there from Groff to try to take advantage of a little bit of others' misfortune. That's exactly what he needed to do to try to get that to play. But Tyler holding on to a top 11 position here at this point. I think he'd like to be up into the top 10, but he's only got 10 laps to do it.
Here we are into those final 10 laps. It's crazy how a race can fly on by when you're having a fun time. Not sure how much fun that traffic's going to be in front of your race leader, though. You saw them duking it out. Drew White, Cristobal Valenzuela. They're fighting for 18th position. Meanwhile, O'Brien now only 6/10 clear of second spot and your defending series champion.
And this is going to be a good marker here for Rasmus to try to continue on in that title defense here. We haven't seen him necessarily come alive yet at Homestead or Watkins Glen, and I think this could be the start of a beautiful thing for the number one.
To be fair, that's how he's been in contention for the championship in the last couple of years. Not by winning race after race after race, but just by consistently being up towards the front.
Yellow!
And this will change everything. Rasmus has the duck and dive to avoid Matt Wagner. And now we may get a 2 or 3 lap shootout.
Oh, this is where it's going to get fun. And I'll tell you what, Michael O'Brien is cursing the stars right now that this just came out. This absolutely scuppered his run. With 2 laps to go, these drivers are going to absolutely go for it as we take a look at the replay.
And we'll see if we can figure this out. Wagner actually lost it early, didn't he? In towards turn 3, and then comes down the racetrack and heads up from those coming on through to not get tangled up. Here it is. It's with Reagan in a Elite West racing machine that you cannot miss. And the unacceptable racing car comes off worse for wear.
Yeah, very much so. Not that hard of impact up into the outside wall, but again, the sensitivity of these cars, the aero sensitivity, enough to be able to knock it around. Now, looking at this, Arjuna, I'm going to anticipate that we're probably going to be going back to green flag racing around lap 147 or 148, so that's going to set us up with a 2 or 3 lap shootout here to the end.
I was right.
Yep.
That was a total guess. I'll be completely honest. I had zero confidence in myself there. I was wondering if anyone was going to come down on towards pit lane. Only Dan Zagers has elected to do so in his Team Talent number 88 machine. It's been a bit of a difficult day for Dan. Sits up there in the top 3 in the championship, of course, but it's a long season. We'll see how this gamble plays off.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't necessarily like it here that we're not dealing with super high drag tires, so you're not going to get that amazing advantage to be able to go past anybody, but if you're farther down in the order, why not take the gamble?
So that's our 3rd caution on the day. It's not been a bad day in terms of the cautions, so that's one thing. Timing of them has been interesting. The first one early in the race, so a couple come down to pit lane. The second one right before our first green flag cycle of pit stops. That did not split and change the field up as much as maybe some were expecting. They now get one final opportunity to throw things at the wall. Earliest we're going to restart is lap 148, which would be 3 laps to go. These are lengthy caution laps for these drivers to sit and wait through.
Yeah, very much so, and these are going to be no longer for anybody than Mike Rasmus, who I guarantee you at this point is itching to see this green flag shown back in the air. He wants to get this move done on Michael O'Brien. He wants this green to go because he wants his chance to make it.
How do you get it done, though? That's the question, because we've seen on the restart how the leader is able to just build an advantage, and if you don't get it on the jump into turn 1, it can't be that easy after that.
Yeah, very much so. I think you've got to go for it into 1. You may be able to set up a little bit of a drag race going down into turn 3, but outside of that, it's going to be tricky.
See if the lights fall off of the pace car this time by. And so if we're getting ready to go back racing, we are going to go back racing with 3 to go. Next flag will end the race. Hopefully it's the checkered, not the yellow. Not just O'Brien that's going to be worried about those behind. Even Taylor's going to be concerned about the fact that Cohn, Campbell, Sirois, Fowler are all in the mix. And for drivers like Fowler, Kraus, and Rodriguez, who are up 20-plus positions, you've got to wonder, how much are they going to tame the risk versus reward of having already climbed their way out of such a big deficit?
Yeah, I mean, we could see Fowler maybe claim a top 10 out of this. We know what a rocket ship that car is. We know how quick it is to be able to get its way up through the order. So maybe Fowler can do a little bit well here. Maybe another couple of our big movers and shakers. Kraus, Rodriguez. I'm even looking back at guys like Alex Guillon, who's just been able to pick his way through the field and is up 14 on the day.
Well, 147 laps effectively moot. A race restarts with 3 laps to shoot it out, and already almighty chaos. A car launched up and over the pit wall in towards the pit road. That's going to be the caution that ends the race. Michael O'Brien will grab the victory. Dustin Wardlow, Christopher, and Tyler Graf getting tangled up.
Wow, that was remarkable to watch happen, Arjuna. I was looking at the front of the field as they dove down into turn one, and all of a sudden, as you said, saw absolute chaos erupt down the main straightaway. This is exactly what we talked about when we talked about those checkups coming back to bite these drivers further back in the field.
So let's go back and look, and in fact it happens in front of Christopher, who gets launched into the catch fencing. I think it was potentially Tyler Graf that got launched off in towards the pit lane. Let's cycle this a little bit further back and see if we can just look at this. You can see Kraus has got a gap behind him, and so as... Oh, it's Dustin Wardlow that had the incident initially, and poor Tyler Graf. I hope he's not in VR.
I hope he's not either. Can we get a closer look at Wardlow here? Because I think he may have actually made contact with the outside wall when he was trying to accelerate. Let's watch him here. It's the white car in the center of your screen right now.
No.
Oh, no. He got tipped from behind. That was the number 4. That was Philip Kraus that got into him.
That's not what you expect of a driver of Phil Kraus's caliber. I think it just goes to show how easy it can be to have these miscommunications on the race start. Now the leaders have already gone, to be fair, so I think we'll grab a look on board with Kraus. It's definitely his fault, but you'll see riding over the shoulder that he's gone when the leader is gone. And I think they were all trying to time it out, and you mentioned it earlier, DJ, they've got to stay to the right side of the track to make things as easy as possible.
Yeah, they really do, and that's just an unfortunate situation there for Kraus. As you said, that was his fault. There is no question about that. But you've got to be so careful on restarts, especially on a short track like this where the leader is going to want to absolutely fly off as much as they can. Just an unfortunate situation that frankly took out some of our favorites here today.
Does mean that, at least at the front, no real changes inside of those top 7 positions. It's behind Fowler that, of course, Wardlow was sitting, and some of the chaos ended up happening. Not the way that I think we thought this race was going to end, was playing out so nicely. 4 cautions, the second highest that the series has seen here in its previous visits, and it's the 3rd time in 7 years that we'll finish under caution.
A little bit surprising, if I'm completely honest, Arjuna, considering the great green flag run that we had, and really and truly a pretty fantastic race. A little bit disappointing to see this end under yellow.
Yeah, I think these drivers know that at least in a week's time they'll be over at Pocono to do it all over again. Front of the field, though, Michael O'Brien will celebrate his 3rd win in this Lionheart Retro Series, and the first not on a road course. It takes multi-disciplines, mastery of all the disciplines to be able to grab the victory. And here in the HyperX New Hampshire 150, it's Michael O'Brien able to make the most of an overcut at the end of the race to run himself into HyperX victory lane. Mike Razmas 2nd, Matt Taylor 3rd, Mark Cohen, and then Sean Campbell, the rest of your top 5. The type of race where getting to the end was a victory in and of itself, and for plenty of drivers digging themselves out of holes in qualifying that DJ, they'll be hoping not to leave themselves in at any time left in 2023.
No, not at all, and I think it goes to show you here, the package that we've got for these cars on short tracks, you're going to have to be a little bit careful, and I think this could be a little bit interesting when we talk about Pocono next week. That's going to be a track where there is a lot of aero wash to be accounted for coming in through turn 1, coming in through turn 2. This could be something that these drivers need to practice on a little bit more.
Michael O'Brien's getting used to burning it down in HyperX victory lane, and it's an Izumi Graphics LC 1, 2, and 3. O'Brien leads Razmas and Taylor across the line, with Cone making it Graphics LC 1, 2, 3, and 4. WMP Racing breaking up the train in 5th. David Sirois 6th, Chris Fowler 7th, Ricky Hardin, and then David Rodriguez, as well as Samuel Fontaine, the rest of your top 10, with, of course, Chris Fowler plus 24, David Rodriguez plus 24, but notably, notice no Phil Kraus scored inside of that top 10. George Anzaldo then in 11th, with Drew White 12th, Valenzuela, Guyon, and Jenkins the rest of the top 15, with Zegers and Wardlow the final 2 cars scored on your lead lap. Of course then, as we finished under caution, Luke Daniels, Chris Reagan, and Matt Wagner. The top 20 The final cars, or first cars, excuse me, scored 1 lap down. I think Phil Kraus self-penalizes himself down to 21st position. Greg Forsyth, Andrew Wood, Hugo Gallus, and then Chris Stouffer, Tyler Groff, and Richie Hearn. Those mixed up in some of the incidents in the closing stages, along with Rodrigo Munoz, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Ken Hacker, your top 30. Joe Hassett, Bruno Miranda, and then Marius Valiokas, who are winner 7 days ago, unable to continue that momentum rolling on forward. Jim Herrick and Kite Bombers back, the first 2 retirees of the day. And so with that said, we make our way on over into what's going to be a very interesting Next Level Racing post-race show. We'll get the opportunity to chat with our race winners. We'll get the opportunity to talk as well, hopefully with our podium sitters as well, and get a sense for DJ after 3 very different and wild rounds for the season, how our drivers are settling into 2023.
Indeed, I think they're settling in pretty well at this point, and I think much like we saw last season, this is going to be one where we've got to figure this out at the very end of the season. We haven't seen a clear breakaway favorite quite yet. Even names like Sean Campbell not able to secure their place on the top of the charts, at the top of the standings. This is going to be fun, and this is going to be a long, long, well-fought season, Arjuna.
Well, standing by in HyperX victory lane for the 3rd time in his Lionheart Retro Series career, it's Michael O'Brien. Michael, congratulations on the victory. Talk us through the overcut, though, that saw you able to leapfrog your way to the very front.
I'll be completely honest, I was not expecting that to happen. I'm not quite sure what happened with Matt in his stop. I would have expected him much closer than that. I didn't even have enough fuel to run clean air the whole back end of that race.
Interesting. So those cautions actually helped you out. I've got to ask, what was going through your mind on what we were hoping was the final restart, only to see the caution come out almost immediately?
Yeah, I was looking forward to the race and sort of relieved that we didn't have to do the race, but no, we'd been together all race, so it would have been nice to race to the line.
What was it like with the traffic? We've talked about how, you know, even within oval racing, there's different disciplines every time we go racing, and one of the big challenges today was carving through the lap traffic.
Yeah, I'm not an oval racer, so I don't know if that's how it normally is, but it was pretty frustrating to... Yeah, I won't say too much, but it was very frustrating.
Over to Pocono in a week's time, Michael. Congratulations on yet another victory.
Thanks, guys.
Michael O'Brien joining us in HyperX Victory Lane. We'll make our way over to Mike Rasmas, who's standing by with DJ Clark.
Well, Mike, obviously you were hoping for a good run there at the end, a little bit scuppered, but are you a little happy at least to walk away with P2?
I'm really happy. I'm happy to have started up there too. Usually qualifying, I start in the 15 to 19 range on the ovals, and I don't know, maybe I worked on it a little bit, but this whole race has been a team effort from practice to qualifying to everything, and you know, we got 4 guys up there, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a great finish for everybody, and so yeah, super happy with second place. I figured I'd finish 3rd behind Michael and Matt, but the way Matt's pit stop cycled out, it was kind of weird, and then that's kind of all she wrote.
Well, speaking of those pit stops, it looked like the overcut strategy was really the way to go around here, as it kind of rocketed both you and Michael O'Brien up into the lead. Did you know how effective that was going to be, or I sense from what you said, maybe a little bit of a surprise?
I didn't think it'd be that effective. I think maybe just the extra few laps on low fuel did it for us. You know, I'm not sure how that all panned out like that, but kind of just lucky, and you know, I really wanted to finish in the top 3 of this race, so getting second by luck is also a great way to go.
Well, it certainly is. You think you can carry on those podium finishing ways when we head to the Tricky Triangle next time out?
We're going to try. That's a fun track, super fun race, so we're going to have fun and see what we can do.
Well, Mike, we'll see you there. I can't wait to watch it. I love calling races from Pocono.
10-4, buddy. Thank you.
We'll make our way over to the final step for the podium, where after leading for the majority of the first half of the race, it was the pit stop strategy that slightly caught out Matt Taylor. What was going through your mind, Matt, coming into pit lane and then seeing everyone else being able to stay out for a couple of laps longer?
Confusion, I guess. In fact, I went back and checked just the couple of lap times around there just to see what happened, and my outlap was 2 seconds slower. So
I honestly have no idea what happened there. It felt like a decent stop, but was clearly not even close. I know fuel is a huge thing, and maybe that lap or two was enough to jump, plus I think a half gallon less in the tank, but not totally sure.
Ultimately, still being a pretty decent start to the season with now 3 rounds in the books. How are you feeling heading into our first Triple Crown of the season at Pocono?
Pretty good. It should be, as this car is, it should be a pretty wild race. I fully expect it to be pretty packy, and we're all going to be fighting for our lives, and at the least try and survive the thing and set up for the end. But pretty good start to the season. Certainly would have liked to have this one tonight, but I'm glad O'Brien finally got one. He's been so close.
In terms of the partnership that we now have with Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, you guys have strength in numbers now. What's it like being in a alliance, I would say, with someone you were fighting with the championship over the last couple of years?
I think it's just a couple other people you can lean on for information, especially Mike Razimus. You know, he knows this car inside and out, does setups for it. So if there's anything we're missing, I'm sure he can fill in the gaps, and then obviously sharing what we have, and I think just having more people is a good thing. And then in race, having people to lean on or work with, it's always beneficial. I do apologize for the team name though; that is very long.
You see where it's a bit of a struggle, right?
And you are free to shorten that up as you need to. If it needs to be something like a Nezumi Madworks, you go right ahead.
We're workshopping it. We'll figure it out. And then we'll let you know, and we'll invoice you for our creative consulting services. Congratulations on a great start to the season, Matt. We'll see you over at the Tricky Triangle in a week's time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Always good to talk with the drivers, DJ, and riff-raff a little bit with them, but 3 races in 3 consecutive weeks. It's not going to be any less forgiving, and already the drivers sound like they're expecting pack racing when we roll out at the Tricky Triangle.
Not altogether surprised, but I am going to be altogether excited when we get there, Arjuna. It's going to be very, very fierce, and I would not be surprised if we see what has become a standard fare about open-wheel racing around Pocono, and that is restarts and starts of 5, 6, 7 wide coming down that main straightaway.
What does it mean with it being a Triple Crown race? How does it take on increased significance when it comes to a driver's mindset and the want to win this race in particular?
Well, every driver's going to tell you, for the most part, that it's just like any other race and that you're going to want to try to focus it in. But the truth of the matter is the Triple Crowns here in Lionheart are the big kahunas. They are the ones that you want to win. Pocono, Indy, and Auto Club. Indy in particular, nothing is going to come close to winning at Indianapolis, but if you are able to take a victory at Pocono, you are going to be walking away with the biggest smile on your face, and you are going to clearly put your name into Lionheart history books as a driver that has won a Triple Crown.
Pocono is also one of those races where you can think you're winning out of turn 3, but come the line, things look a very, very different picture. That's a race where in the 6 previous seasons, only once has a driver from inside the top 10 headed to HyperX victory lane, and that was back in Season 1, a long, long time ago. What a run that we had here, though, at the Magic Mile, but before we say goodbye, it's time to thank all those that make things possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thurmont, California put you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com to learn more. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is a all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. From simple logos to full branding for your company, Virtual Designs deliveries race by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit graphicesports.com. It's not just them, but so many more that make all this possible. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, head to lionheartracingseries.com, where you can find all the information about the 3 competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts forward as well. For our team here at RaceSpotTV, it's been a busy week of Lionheart competition, but the double-header of sports car and retro series action returns next week. For DJ Clark alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us here at New Hampshire. What a magical race that we had. Michael O'Brien, the most magical of them all. We'll see you in 7 days' time from Pocono for the first Triple Crown race of the season.